Hi, everybody. It's Professor Corey, and I know you're working on your final drafts of your final stories, and I thought that this would be the best way for me to help you with those drafts. Um, by it would be by sharing an example of a story that has a lot of promise, but needs to be refined a bit. And I want to thank the student who's allowed me to use their piece for this video tutorial. Um, so as a reminder, here are some of the basic requirements. Number, number one, it needs to be 450 to 500 words, no more than 500 words. In journalism, if they give you a story max, excuse me, a word max, there's a reason for it. They need to fit a particular size in a newspaper or on a website. And readers often like tune out after a certain word length if it's about a particular topic, unless it's a in-depth investigation. So it also needs to have a strong lead that hooks the reader in. We've talked about leads along throughout the semester, and so really think about what would entice people, and what the focus of your story is. So remember, if how could you easily share the story with a friend? What's it about? If your friend asks you what the story is about and you say it, that's usually an easy way to indicate how you can share your lead. Remember to include the five W's and an H: who, what, where, when, how, and why. They don't all need to go into your lead. They probably shouldn't. It's jam packing a lead. Um, but you should have it all in there to make sure you have the proper context for people to understand what your story is about, and for you to be as complete as possible. It should have at least three appropriately quoted sources with good quotes. So a good quote is something that pushes a story forward and is something that says something that you couldn't say better yourself. So you want to, and what we mean by appropriately quoted, so you want it to be relevant. You also want to make sure that it follows proper grammar, style, and punctuation. And we're going to go over that a little bit more throughout this example that I'm going to show you. You want a nut graph, something that says why the story matters in a nutshell. What's the big picture, and how would you and why is it important? Um, the story should not be in first person, so there should be no references to yourself, like I interviewed so and so, or I believe X, Y, or Z, or even a reference to your own opinion. This is how things should be. Um, it is about the facts. It's not about the story. Is not about you. Um, so you want facts in the body of the story to back you up, back up your lead and your nut graph. So anything else in the story outside of the lead and your quotes, um, is just white noise. I mean, if it's not factual, it's just white noise. So that's how you know that all the research that you've done, some things, and yes, let's say you're not sure about what to include. Um, if it doesn't follow what your lead and your nut graph has said, then move along and make sure that your story continues the thread. Um, so you want, uh, and then accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. So you want to make sure that everything is double checked. So we've talked about CQing everything. So that means correct as written. That means every person's name, every person's age, where they come from, the facts themselves, um, that you have verified. And you want a strong kicker to think that, in other words, a conclusion. Um, you should be using a quote as your kicker, and it should either kind of bring things into make have a sense of a completion, or push them along to make people get a sense of what may happen going forward. Those are a couple of examples of what you should be looking for in a kicker. And then you want adherence to AP style, as well as solid grammar, punctuation, and spelling, I should say. Quotes go outside the comma and period, or outside punctuation when it comes to um, when it comes to quotations. AP style, most of the time, when it comes to these type of stories, is in reference to dates, times, and locations. So dates would be like, I'm gonna just put it in here today. I don't know. Today is December 16th. However, if you're just referring to December on its own, it would just be December. And it's about 2 p.m. So I would say 2 p.m. with the space there, not 2 p.m. or 2 p.m. I'm going to put that in. All right, so I hope that's helpful. So here's an example of a story that has a lot of promise. The person did a lot of really good research. There was a focus to the story about this food bank in central islip, and the good things that they are doing. Needed a little bit more refinement, and we had some extra questions about how to even make it even better. So I'm going to go through some of the things in the original draft that was submitted and some of the questions that we had afterward. So it starts out that throughout the pandemic and continuing through the year, many food pantries and food banks haven't been able to keep up with the high demand of families that are struggling. The Central Isaac Civic is one of the many food pantries that have been able to keep up with high demand. Well, that seems a little bit contradictory, so wanted to investigate that a little bit more. So that's something that I want you to consider and take notes if I haven't already mentioned this yet, but investigate your own information. Does it make sense? Read it aloud. So it seemed there was a little question mark I had here about the flow of the story at this point. And usually I know just through my own coverage that it's such a civic association is usually referred to as something other than just a centralized civic. And on second reference, you can say the civic association or something like that. And it goes on to talk about how it has this centralized civic uh, has partnered with the Christian Cultural Center. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about that. We'll go through it a little bit further going on forward. Related to quotes. So here's like the person here sets up the quote. Uh, and then what you do when you have a transition to a quote, so you have a transitional phrase that goes to a quote, most often you want to go to a new paragraph. And said one volunteer. All right, so we got a volunteer. That's pretty cool. That's interesting. This pantry has shaped the community for the better. Um, avoid semicolons. This is actually a new sentence. So without this place, I wouldn't know where my family and I would be. Uh, and it says said. I mean, and keep with past tense. Said volunteer. You know, Jovid And we need we need full names. Um, and then civic, when it's not referring to the proper noun, just keep it to like a gen, so that would be lowercase, and food bank is lowercase. And just going on to other things, like again, just looking over punctuation, little things like that. She said, so it'd be like, she said, I have a more completed version of this going forward. And then, and when you're ending it with a quote, so you have, so oftentimes a lot of folks who take introduction to journalism are used to writing essays and try to write a conclusion that is just their own perspective. Like I said, it's not about us. It's not about the writer. So we want to know what the person has to say. So we would like probably just delete the last part here because that's a more of a commentary than it is the story part of the story. So let's go what it looks like with an edited version with some questions and comments. And so it's shortened up a bit. The lead is shortened up a bit. It says throughout the pandemic, many food pantries and food banks have been trying to keep up with the demand, with high demand from families struggling with the Biden inflation. Boom. I know what the story is about right then. Uh, to help meet that demand, turns out the name of the civic association is the Civic Centralized Civic Council, um, which runs an emergency food bank, one of many food pantries part. Okay, so one of management partner with the Christian Cultural Center. So the Christian Cultural Center um, helps provide nutrition for families and has a Long Island campus based in Smithtown. Uh, for for some, the food banks food serves as far more than a place to stock up with necessities. That is our transitional phrase into the quote to Jovid. So I mean, we needed that a stronger transitional phrase. Um, and so but it was a good, solid quote that we couldn't have gotten other way in any other way. So who is Jovid? Full name, age, and the place town he lives in. And he volunteering for at least 5 years. It'd be great if we knew exactly how long. Uh, Grizel Mongo, who's the head of operations for the food bank. Food bank. It was a in this case we made sure that this was a the wording and the phrasing was clear. So the experiences and conversations that take place within the four walls of the building, uh, yeah, create a much needed sense of community and comfort. Uh, and there's a good quote here from Mongo. Uh, Most of the time, you want to have an active phrasing where it says, Mongo said, but in this case, um, you're introducing a little bit more about who that person is, and it's okay. So, age in town this person lives in. They've been doing charity work for more than 10 years. 10, the number 10 and above is spelled out, so make sure about that. 1 to 9 is excuse me, 10 is a numeral and 1 to 9 is spelled out. This is just a little grammatical thing here. Uh, and another good quote here. The Central Isaac Civic hosts many other events. So this is some background information, which is good. It helps us understand what the Civic is and does on an annual basis. Uh, so here we are, want to make sure that the person that we talk to, where are they from? Um, I- And it's great that we talk to somebody who actually uses the services of the food bank. Um, and she has been going to the food bank for about 3 years. I rely upon this pantry because it keeps smiles on my kids' faces without having me to stress and worry about how I'm going to make it happen. Uh, then it the that's awesome. That's an awesome quote. So then this toy drive is no, I'm not in this case. I have a question about where the quote ends and begins, and it references a toy drive, but I'm not really sure what toy drive we're talking about. Maybe it's just a toy drive or a Christmas toy drive, which need to be specific. Um, a disabled resident, so where is she from? Michelle Whitaker, and how old is she? Describe the uh, and there was a word here that we need to just, I'm not really sure what it's. I think it's a word they need to talk about, or need to investigate again. Maybe I think the phrasing could be better. Of the food pantry and the tour drive as a gift from God, which is great. Now, would it be also? It would be just to end the story. All it would be great just to have a quote that elaborated on the sentiment from Michelle Whitaker. And when we say disabled, I'm curious to know what we mean by disabled. In what way is that person disabled? Be specific. Uh, so yeah, so that kind of leaves me to believe: are they question mark? Are they in a wheelchair? Or do they have a some other type of disability? You know, be specific. So again, double check everything. Follow the basic tenets of what we're talking about. I will put this up in the on Brightspace so that you can take a look and review it. And I'm hoping to get to as many assignments as I can today and tomorrow. But I hope that this helps you in your overall assessment of your own stories and where they're headed. And it's been a pleasure having you in class. I hope that you got something out of it, whether you're in journalism or headed into any other discipline. Communication is so important, and being able to share what you know, investigate the information and where it comes from, and being able to communicate your, yourself in an effective way, um, just would allows you to become a better person and grow within any discipline you're hoping to get into. So thanks again for being part of Introduction to Journalism, and I hope to talk to you soon.